Hello, everyone. Hope everyone can hear me and can see my my slides. Welcome to a brand new Heimdal Security webinar. Alina Maria is my name, as usual. For those of you that are not new to my webinars, you already know me. I'm the webinar program manager at Heimdal Security, and usually the host for these events for the persons that are attending the webinar for the first time. Thank you very much for joining this session. I truly hope that you will enjoy it, and I'm very glad to see so many of you attending today. So if you cannot see my screen, just drop me a line in the questions box for the webinar, or if you cannot hear me for any reason, just let me know. Just making sure that everyone can have a good experience with me today. So without further ado, let's dive into the main topic of the webinar, which is ransomware. But first, I'm going to introduce Heimdal to the persons that maybe haven't heard about us yet. And then, of course, I'll dive into the details of what is ransomware, how it works, some interesting ransomware statistics that you may like to hear. And then also talk about, how ransomware evolved over the years, discuss some of the most notorious ransomware strains, have more like a discussion, if you will, maybe a monologue of myself, but we can have a conversation in the Q&A session as well regarding whether a ransom should be paid or not in the aftermath of an attack, or if God forbid that happens to you. And then, of course, I will talk about how you can prevent ransomware, these attacks. And I'm also going to talk about how our newly launched product, Ransomware Encryption Prevention and Protection, can actually help you with that. And I also have two videos to showcase the product in action, if you will. But I'm going to talk more about it when I'll get there. So the Q&A session is going to be towards the end of the webinar as well. If you have questions by that time, feel free to shoot them. I'll have a look at them when we get to that dedicated time slot. If you have questions during that time slot, feel free to jump in. I'll try to answer, any questions that I get. Some of them I might not be able to answer right now, but I'll get back to you with an answer in an email as usual. And at the very end, I also have a surprise for you. I think you're going to enjoy it, so stay with me up until the end. That being said, let me quickly talk about who we are as an organization. So we're a leading European provider of cloud-based cybersecurity. We are based in Copenhagen in Denmark, and we've been invented by the winners of what's called DEF CON Capture the Flag. DEF CON Capture the Flag is actually seen as the world hacking championship, if you will. They receive teams from the likes of the FBI, NSA, other big security companies, freelancers even, that are participating in that competition. So our guys won this competition actually for 2 years in a row, and for the first time in the history of the competition when it was won by a non-US team. And then, when they came back home after winning, they said, if with our product we can win this championship, then for sure we can fend off hackers. So this is kind of how they laid the foundation of what it's Heimdal Security now. And we've been in the market with our products since 2014. We have some of the market's leading products in proactive threat prevention. And the FBI and the Danish cybercrime police in Denmark are endorsing our threat intelligence. We're even working together with the US Department of Justice and Europol in something that's called the No More Ransom Initiative. And on another train of thoughts, we are honored to be recommended by the Royal Bank of Scotland as their preferred cybersecurity solution for the business customers. And as you can see from our logo, we take our Northern heritage very, very seriously. Even the name comes from the Northern mythology. Heimdal was the ultimate guardian that guarded the rainbow bridge named Bifrost, which connected the Earth with the home of the gods, the city Asgard. And we are acting pretty much down the same line. We are protecting our customers, making sure that any malware that's trying to get in from the internet to their devices is going to be stopped by our guard. So that's a very, very short introduction, I'd say, about who we are as an organization. I hope I shed some light to the people that are maybe new to our webinars. Now, let's talk about ransomware. So, what is ransomware? Well, in very simple terms, ransomware is a sophisticated piece of malware that basically takes the victim's file hostage, claiming to restore them only if they paid a ransom. I think this illustration kind of tells it, and it's very suggestive, if you will, describing what a ransomware is. Now, if you're wondering how it works, well, there are two types of ransomware. The first type that I'm going to talk about is encrypting ransomware, and this one, of course, incorporates advanced encryption algorithms. Excuse me, I think excuse me for this. Someone's saying that they cannot hear anything. Can anyone else hear me? I just want to identify whether this is a problem for everyone. Okay, so some people can hear me. Good. Maybe you have your volume muted or something like that. So just try that. All right, excellent. Good. So I was talking about the encrypting ransomware. This is, as I said, it incorporates advanced encryption algorithms. It's really designed to block system files and take the files themselves on the hard drive hostage. They will encrypt them, and then they will demand the attackers will demand a ransom, a payment, to give you a key in order to be able to decrypt that data and be able to use it again. Now, the other type of ransomware is the locker ransomware. And this one, it's still going to ask for a payment. But what it does is that it's locking the user, the victim, out of the operating system, making it impossible for them to access the desktop or Windows. Basically, the files are not encrypted themselves in this case, but what they do, they will infect the master boot record, which is basically like the map of the of how the operating system loads, if you will. And because of that, the boot process can complete. And of course, during that sequence, when the computer boots up, you're going to get a screen demanding for a ransom. And again, they're going to, as I said, they're going to ask that payment for you and give you instruction on how you can make that payment. So ransomware over the last years has turned to be one of the most lucrative types of cyber attacks. Perhaps I would say it's number one. But then here are some interesting stats and kind of backing up what I'm saying. So according to the industry prediction, there are going to be almost 6 ransomware attacks that will occur every minute this year in 2021. That's a significant increase from one attack every 40 seconds, as it were in 2016, and one every 14 seconds, as it was in 2019. Also, out of all the different types of cyber crimes, ransomware is really by far the fastest growing. So in 2021, it seems that the total cost of ransomware for the companies, of course, costs associated with data recovery, are going to be projected to exceed $20 billion. That's 50 more, I'm sorry, 57 more times, 57 times more than what it used to be in 2015. And on average, organizations are now paying a ransom of $233,000. And I was looking at some statistics from last year, and in the third quarter of 2020, it was like an increase from, well, 31% increase from the second quarter of 2020, and the 47.8 increase over the first quarter of last year. But it's not that just the average payment, the ransom payment, has increased. Also, the downtime associated with the cost, because the malware strains are getting each and every day more advanced, harder to detect, and then harder to remove. So here, if we're looking at a comparison with for 2020, we had an increase of 57% compared to 2019. And with all that, and for good reason, 80% of senior IT and IT security leaders and experts believe that their organization lack at this point sufficient protection against cyber attacks, while 91% of these guys are asking for increased budgets just because they understand just how vulnerable some organizations are and how dangerous this type of attack can be and the consequences for that. So we've seen it's lucrative, it's disastrous for the hackers. Of course, it's disastrous for the victims of the cyber attacks. But let's go a little back in history and understand how we got to this. So it may be difficult to imagine, but the first ransomware emerged in 1989. That's almost 33 years ago. And it was called the AIDS Trojan. It was actually released at a scientific conference, and it spread via floppy disks, if you can believe. So those floppy disks would log the computers for the people, and then they were asked to send $189 to a post office in Panama to pay the ransom. But as you know, we're in 2021, times have changed greatly. And especially ransomware has been very lucrative with the appearance of the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin especially. This turned the ransomware, which was initially maybe seen as a form of cyber vandalism, if you will, into a full-fledged money-making machine. So because of this, now every cyber criminal would like to be part of it, right? They want to get in the game to make the money because it's a lot of money that's involved in this. And as I said, they're no longer just malicious hackers, no longer just there for getting the names out there, if you will, or just for serving justice. They're in it for the money. So ransomware as a service is really what happens when these hackers, these malicious actors, stop thinking like virtual highwaymen, if you will, and they start thinking like businessmen. So what they did, they created this ransomware as a service model, and this model relies on an operator, and this operator is going to have some software that he either, of course, malware, that's either going to be developed in-house in their own incubator, having his own team, or they're gonna just turn to peddlers to get different components in order to compile a malware or the components of an attack, if you will. And then what they do, they will rely on affiliates. They will give them the malware and say, you know what, you go ahead. If you want to carry out an attack, here's how you can use it. And then you're gonna give me between 10 and 30%, and then you will be able to take up until 70% of the ransom. And even though we, if you're comparing this with the rest of the industry, the ransomware as a service, it's young, but it's getting a lot of traction, as we've seen from the statistic. And really, there are a lot of people. And maybe that's also based on the COVID-19 pandemic. Maybe people that remained without a job, or for whatever reason, they start to turn into the dark side, if you will. So they don't necessarily have the required knowledge to carry out an attack on their own, but they're getting the information and they're getting the malware and they're getting whatever they need from the operators, the ransomware as a service operators, in order for them to carry out attacks, and they get to do the job and get the money, the easy money from the victims. So they don't mind if they're gonna give out some of the money to the ransomware operators. For them, that's still a lot of money. So in a nutshell, the ransomware as a service, this business model sells or rents very compact, very easy to deploy, scalable malware kits to individuals or groups that want to stage cyber attacks. And since we're getting to this, we gotta get a little bit more acquainted with how this works. Now, let's see some of the most notorious types of ransomware. So we'll first start with Wannacry, and they have funny names sometimes as well. So Wannacry is a crypto ransomware type. In 2007, the Wannacry ransomware became really one of the most devastating type of cyber attacks that was ever seen at the time. It infected and locked up around 230,000 computers in 150 countries. So you can imagine the magnitude of the attack in a single day. So they didn't, stay, and the attack didn't took for years. Of course, perhaps the victims were infected, a lot of time before the encryption and the locking up of the computers actually happened, but the attack itself, the encryption of the data and everything else, just took one single day. Among the victims of that attack were the NHS, so the UK National Health Service, were FedEx, Spain's Telefonica, Renault Nissan, just a few of the big names that were impacted by that ransomware at that specific time. Moving on, we have Revel, or also known as Nokibi. It's a hard to spell name. This is a private ransomware operation as well. Ransomware-as-a-Service operation, of course. And as part of this agreement, as mentioned earlier, they're just going to split the revenue from the generated payments. It's not really known from where these guys are really, the Revel Nokibi gang. It is believed to be from Russia, though, because they don't really attack any organizations in Russia or those in the former Soviet bloc countries. What it is believed, though, about these guys is that it's like a spin-off of the now defunct hacker gang, which is Grand Crab. Maybe you may have heard of it. Some of the most notorious attacks are those on the law firm Gurmanshire, Mazars, and Sachs. Last year in May, they demanded $42 million from the US President Donald Trump. And in the same month, the group released legal documents about Lady Gaga with a total size of 2.4 gigabytes. And this year in March, a Revel affiliate claimed on their data leak site that they have downloaded data from the multinational hardware and electronics corporation Acer. You may have heard of it. Maybe you've owned an Acer laptop at a time. And just last month in April, you may have heard about this. Quanta Computer, which is one of Apple's partners, has been breached by these guys, and the ransomware attack was conducted on them, and they stole plans for Apple laptops and other devices, of course asking for a 50 million ransom in order for them to not make that information public, which they did, some of it at least, and of course give them access to the data as well. Now, next one, it's NetWalker. This is a form of ransomware that was discovered in 2019 in September. And it seems that they're operated by a Russian-speaking group. These guys operate under the name the Cyber Spider. Of course, still a ransomware-as-a-service business model. Well, what's interesting is that this guy have some sort of incentives as well for their affiliates. So what they're doing, or at least they were doing, they said that they're going to offer their affiliates up to 84% from the ransom if the previous week earnings were over $300,000. Otherwise, they would be getting around 80% of the ransom. And it seems that these guys were very lucrative as well. Apparently, they made around $25 million in just 5 months. So when these guys started, they were doing damage through spam emails and phishing links, but it was discovered that as of April 2020, they started to recruit very experienced network engineers, intruders, whatever you want to call them, in order for them to be able to gain access to large organizations and manipulate unpatched VPNs, weak RDP protocols, and passwords, and expose gaps in in their application. I see someone's raising hands, but I think it would be great if you can just ask a question if you have. All right. Some of the victims of Networker were Champaign-Urbana Public Health District in Illinois, USA, Brno University Hospital in Czech Republic that happened last year, Michigan University, the entire Austrian city of Weiz were attacked, Toll Group Australia, KLK Pakistan, and there were many others that would probably take me too long to just talk about everyone. Moving on, we have Maze. And this one was previously known as the Chacha ransomware, discovered in 2019 as well in May, with the same goal of encrypting and exfiltrating as much data as possible, and then of course asking for the ransom to recover the data. But what these guys starting to do was that they would exfiltrate that data and sell data, valuable information on the dark market. And on top of that, they would go to partners, customers of the victim, stock exchanges if that was the case, news outlets to talk about the ransom and everything if the ransomware was not paid. So that's kind of both a case of ransomware and a data breach in the same time. And it was mainly distributed by malspam, utilizing weaponized attachments. Mostly were Word and Excel files, and they also concentrated their attacks by doing RDP brute force attacks as well. And they encrypted the data using the Chacha-20 and the RSA algorithms. One of the victims was Canon. They were breached last year in August, and after that, if you can believe, the hackers released a press release. They said that they are closing their operations, and I like to quote their message. And they said that our world is sinking in the recklessness and indifference, in laziness and stupidity. If you are taking the responsibility for other people's money and personal data, then try to keep it secure. Until you do that, there will be more projects like Maze to remind you about a secure data storage. However, that's not good news, because they also said that we will be back to you when the world has been transformed, and we will return to show you again the errors and mistakes and to get you out of the maze. So I would say these guys love the drama, dramatic exit, and in the same time, I'd say dramatic comeback already. But hopefully we won't hear from them anytime soon. Now we have Petya, or not Petya. Petya at first was just another piece of ransomware. They basically, through their malware, they were getting the permission to get admin rights on the machine, and then they rebooted the machine, forcing the user out of the operating system and not allowing the user to get back. They mapped, they blocked basically the MBR, right? Not allowing the machine to boot up. And of course, asking for a ransom to decrypt that. But then it evolved into NotPetya. This one began to spread rapidly in Ukraine, in Europe, beyond Europe as well. and they did not rely on spam emails or social engineering to gain admin access. They were able to do that themselves. While they still kind of behave like Petya, they also have some special characteristic, such as it can spread on its own. It has mechanism to exploit several weaknesses, and they are using different techniques, such as including the eternal blue and the eternal romance, the exploits. It encrypts everything on the hard drive, where Petya was just encrypting basically or modifying the master boot record. And Petya, what it used to do, they use an identifying number to know which victim actually paid. But for NotPetya, that number was generated randomly. And because of that, no files could be recovered because they had no idea how they encrypted or what they did on a machine. So the victims paid, but they never get the data back. So that's very, very nasty. Now I'm going to talk about Dharma. Dharma is also known, if you will, as the SME ransomware. It's dubbed like that because it mostly preys on small and medium enterprises, businesses. In December 2019, the average payment was around $191,000, but these guys, their average payment was around $8,000. However, because of this and because it's kind of very accessible, it's still one of the most profitable ransomware strains. Still Ransomware-as-a-Service, of course. But what they do, they use a complicated two-stage encryption process. And what this process really does, it kind of keeps the affiliates coming back to them and dependent on their model, because first of all, the victims are going to get some information about the files that have been encrypted. That's going to be saved in a text file. That file is going to be then mailed or sent to the affiliates. The affiliates then submit that data from the victim to the ransomware operator in order for them to receive the key for sending that key back to the victim. So this way they kind of keep them hooked every time, and they keep making money for them as well. And the last one that I want to talk about is Egregor. They earned their reputation, if you will, after they hacked Barnes & Noble, and they also hacked Crytek and Ubisoft. These are some very huge and well-known game developers as well. They did that in 2020. It's a form of malware that's really a modification of the SecMet and the Maze ransomware. There are code similarities between all of these three variants. However, these is kind of modified as well. What it does is that, like most ransomware, they're using a loader to install the ransomware, and then it kind of goes through extensive code obfuscation in order to make sure that there's no possibility to analyze the malware, or in that way maybe get the decryption key as well. And what they're doing after a breach, the ransomware, the Egregor ransomware, will manipulate the victim's firewall, basically enabling RDP, and then they move through the network, identifying and disabling all antivirus software. And when all that's removed, they start encrypting all of the breach machines, and then of course they're going to insert a text file in each of the folders that have been compromised, basically providing instruction on how to recover those files. And what they do, they also instruct the victim to go through a dark web browser and to establish communication with the attackers, and kind of get further information about it as well. What these guys do, also, besides encrypting, they also leak data as well. So it's a double extortion tactic, if you will. They right after the breach, they also published a subset of the compromised data on the dark web as a proof of successful exploitation of the data. So if the victim doesn't believe that the data is now in the hands of a cyber criminal, now they're instructed to go there and see it. So these were the some of the most notorious ones that I want to talk about. I'm just going to mention Darkseed, which is gaining a lot of traction lately. You may have heard about the attack on the Colonial pipeline in the US a couple of days ago. So it seems that the Darkseed ransomware strain was involved in that. Actually, the United States declared a state of emergency in 17 countries after the attack on the Colonial pipeline. Sad news, but that's why you need to be really protected. Hackers don't discriminate. They're clever by day, I would say, and they're going to use every possible mean in order to make their time worth it, make money out of it. Before I'm going to move to the next topic, I'm just curious to maybe know what's your opinion. If, God forbid, in the aftermath of a ransomware attack, what would you do? Would you pay the ransom or you would not pay the ransom? And there's really no correct answer, I'd say. So feel free to vote with your heart. But what do you think you would do or should do in the aftermath of that attack? And then we'll move on to the next topic. So I'm gonna activate a poll now. You can vote. I'm gonna launch it now. Hope everyone will be able to see it on the screen. I'm gonna give you around a minute for this, for everyone to be able to vote, maybe think what they would do. We're at 30 seconds left. A lot of you voted. Still a couple that haven't. As I said, there's really no wrong or correct answers for this. Really, it kind of depends. All right, so good. Gonna close this poll now. I'm gonna share with you. Let's see. Hope you can see it. So it seems that 87% of you said that they would not pay the ransom, while 13% would pay the ransom in the aftermath of an attack. That's good in a lot of ways. However, there could be situations where paying may be the only option. I'm gonna hide the poll now. Thank you for your answers. I'm glad to see you are kind of committed to not encouraging this model, if you will. Let me know. I don't know if you can see my screen now. Can you see it? All right. Hopefully you can see the screen again. So, questioning whether we should pay the ransom or not pay the ransom. That's a tricky question indeed. A company may feel at points that they have really no choice but to pay in order to gain access to the data and resume business. They may depend on that information. It could be critical information for the business, or maybe if that information goes out, it's going to really put them out of business because of the competition or the news or the customers. As it turns out, it was, if I remember correctly, 94% of the customer, or no, 60% of the customer would say that they would not buy from someone that was affected by a cyber incident during the past year. And I had that statistics in one of my past webinars as well. And that's understandable. However, this way, by paying the ransom, what's happening really is that it's telling the cyber criminals that this evil business model is working, and uh, encourage them to do that, and they're funding further operation, and they even risk to be ransomed again, which has happened. There's an article on our blog as well about a company that forgot to do one thing, uh, and they got ransomed 2 times in a row by the same group, unfortunately. But those things can happen if that business model is reinforced by providing payments. And it seems that there are government level discussions that paying the ransom should be made illegal, right? To discourage this phenomenon, to put the business model out, just because people are not going to pay because it's going to be illegal for them to pay. So how are they going to get the money? But in the same time, this could have some painful consequences as well. Because what if a lot of organizations not paying the ransom are not going to be able to stay in the business anymore? And that turns into leaving hundreds or thousands unemployed, and that can turn into and cascade into a lot of other unwanted consequences. Whether the authorities are going to take this route or not, it's really remained to be seen. But until then, prevention is key, right? You need to make sure that you are protected as much as possible. So how do you do that? Well, I'm constantly saying this, and the people that are not new to the webinar probably hear me a lot of times saying that unfortunately, people are the greatest weakness in cybersecurity. That's why it's crucial to have cybersecurity awareness and education training and materials distributed to them periodically. You need to have, and it's kind of mandatory nowadays to have at least 2 cybersecurity trainings per year. Teach your employees, especially the newcomers, how should they use the data? How should they create the passwords? How should they look at a link that they want to click on? How they can spot a phishing email that could perhaps go past the email protection? On what websites are allowed to go or not to go? And stuff like that, making sure that they understand that their action could cost the company millions, and that there are very, very painful consequences for that. Another thing you should do is to back up your data frequently. Back it up in the cloud whenever possible. However, back it up offline. Use offline storage to back up critical data whenever possible. Make sure that data is not connected to the network, and maybe overnight, or at any point in time if that's possible, because malware can spread laterally. They can go into the network, they can find data backups, they can delete the data backups, or even encrypt that if they're connected to the network and they manage to breach that network as well. Another thing you should do is turn off the macros in the Office suite. As you've seen, as I've said just a little bit earlier, a lot of malware is still spreading through Word and Excel files, through macros. Hackers rely on these methods because they look legitimate. It's on Word documents, an Excel file. I can open it. There's no exe file there, nothing. But they can exploit the macros and then get malware into your machines. Make sure that you patch, and you patch frequently, both Windows and third-party application. 85% of attacks, if I remember correctly, the statistic, are using unpatched software as an entry point into an endpoint. So make sure that your software is always up to date. Also, use strong passwords, passwords that are hard to guess. And on top of that, use two-factor authentication whenever you can, for whatever product, whatever software you're using, if they allow you to have and have that feature of two-factor authentication, then choose to use it. That's going to add an extra layer of protection. Even that SMS or an authenticated application, it's an extra step that you need to take to log in. It may seem, a little bit more tedious than just putting in a password or just saving it in Chrome or in some application that does that. But having two-factor authentication is really going to stop the hacker, because it's going to make their lives a lot harder into getting into accounts and maybe compromise even more of the data. And of course, last but not least, you should use strong cybersecurity tools. And you've seen malware is getting into your business, into your life, if you will, using all possible attack vectors, from phishing emails to unpatched application to Excel files and so on. That's why your cybersecurity in 2021 should be layered. You should have DNS protection, real-time DNS protection. That's going to be able to filter out malicious websites and discover malicious websites before that's going to hit the machine, and of course before that's known to others. And I'm going to take this opportunity to just say two things about a breakthrough that our own AI did just yesterday. So it seems there was a massive scam, cryptocurrency scam going on with some servers that were unknown to any other security provider on the market. Our AI managed to spot and detect that and actually block the phishing, the malware campaign, the cryptocurrency scam for our customers. So just as a parenthesis, but that's why it's important to have multiple layers. If you can automate the patching process, do it. I know, and if you're looking for statistics on the internet, and I have shared some on my patching related webinar, it's a tedious process. It requires a lot of synchronization. It requires really a lot of testing of the patches that your IT team should do. And then, of course, deploying the patches can be very tedious. And there's like a patching paradox, if you will. If you say that, by adding more people to the patching process, it's actually going to speed up. It seems that's not really the case. So the more people you add, the more difficult it's going to be to the patching process, it seems. So that's why if you can use an automated patching solution, whether that's ours or another vendor, just make sure that they can cover, patch, and deliver rollback patches at any point in time. And how can we help with all this? We've seen ransomware really leaves no one behind. If they can, they will. And the statistics told us that, or show us that this is not going to get any better, or at least not now, not for the time being. The attacks are going to become more and more frequent, looking back at the statistics and the data. So I've mentioned some of our products, which is our threat prevention module. That's the DNS filtering. It's working both at endpoint and network level. Endpoint meaning on the machine. So regardless of where your employees are going to be, they will be protected. They can work from home, they can work from the office, they can work from a beach, from a bar, especially nowadays with the hybrid workforce that we've seen being more and more frequently adopted. I think that's going to be very important. Keep your endpoints protected no matter where they are, but also protect your network, your office network as well, especially if you're using IoTs. These are especially targeted now by the hackers because a lot of times they have very weak security. And I'm not talking about passwords, about how they built. And the hackers can then use those entry points and gain access into your network. So make sure that you have a protection there as well. And our automated module, as I said, it's going to apply the patch within 4 hours of the after the patch has been released by the vendor of that specific software. We are going to test it. We're delivering the patch to any endpoint that's according to a schedule in a group policy, if you will. We're doing that by using encrypted traffic. We're scanning, we're testing that those patches for bloatware, for malware, for any type of that stuff, delivering clean patches to your endpoints in encrypted packages and encrypted traffic. And this is what you can do to prevent. It's part of our prevention suite. But also part of our prevention suite is our ransomware encryption protection solution. And it may seem that is more of a reactive solution, but I'm saying it's still a proactive one, because even if some of the other security layers have been breached and ransomware is going to get on your machines, it's going to be stopped by this solution. What it does is constantly monitoring the machine, and at the slightest sign that there's an encryption, that's of course using some metrics and vectors to determine whether that's malicious or not. It's actually going to stop it and kill it. So you won't be able to open up that malware again, and it's going to block the encryption of the files on that specific malware. It's running, as I said, a signatureless protection. So regardless of whether that's some known strain of malware or a new one, it's going to be stopped. So this is going to keep you protected, limit your data loss, and of course help you increase compliance and eliminate any potential downtimes that would come in the aftermath of a ransomware attack. Now, as I said at the beginning of the webinar, what I want to do is to share 2 videos of our tool in action. They're done by a colleague of mine in R&D. Let me see if I can just start sharing the first one. I'm not sure if you will be able to hear me during the video. Hopefully you will. I'm going to start with the Wannacry ransomware. Okay, so it seems that it's working. So what's happening here, and I'm going to pause it a little bit. Hope you can see it on the screen. Yeah. Okay. So what's happening here? We have the ransomware Wannacry. This is a virtual machine where my colleague is working. We have the ransomware strain deployed. It's archived right now. It's going to be password protected. We've disabled our protection agent and Windows Defender, and then he's going to run that malware, and of course that's going to start encrypting files on the hard drive. What we're looking at, especially in this example, are these car files on the desktop. So you'll see, some car brands there, some pictures actually, and you'll see that's going to start or at least try to encrypt some of the files on the hard drive. And as soon as that's going to be detected by our ransomware encryption protection, it is going to block it. So let's have a look at that. It's running that. We're getting info. Maybe this is Wannacry. This is known. This variant of the Wannacry is one that's known, but that's on purpose. So it's run that, but it's seen that our agent blocked it immediately. So we have the pictures on the desktop. They still tried to encrypt one, but they couldn't. The picture is accessible, and it basically stopped the ransomware. Now, if he's trying to run it again, it's not going to work. And on our dashboard, which looks a little bit different now, we just launched the redesigned one. It looks way fancier. You'll be able to see, and do the forensics, right? What happened? What got this file? What were the applications that run? What were the processes that were started by the applications? And if they called out external networks as well. Oh, someone's saying that they cannot hear me when the video is playing. So let me put this on pause then. Can you guys hear me now? Excellent. So what you've seen was, the ransomware strain actually being blocked by our agent. The pictures were, it tried to encrypt it, but they couldn't. So the pictures, the files were accessible. My colleagues started then to try and rerun that process. It was blocked by our solution. So that cannot run again. It cannot have another attempt to do an encryption on the machine. And on top of that, if you're going to our unified threat dashboard, you're going to get access to with our product, then there's going to be so-called forensic modules that are going to help you identify what were the process that started the ransomware, how it got into the machine, and then the other processes that were run by that specific malware in order to be able to encrypt the files. But that, of course, has been stopped. That's very useful for admins, IT administrator that is, or cybersecurity people within the organizations to go and look and see, how that malware got into the machine and make sure that maybe that's not happening on others, or block certain commands, or certain restrict some of the permissions on other machines as well. Now, the second video that I will play, and I hope you can hear me again, it is something that's called the Mavic Ransomware. But the Mavic Ransomware is actually, and I'm going to talk first and then let you see how that works. Just making sure that you're not, I'm not going to be muted while talking, so for you to not understand maybe what you're looking at. But what happens here is that my colleague is again using a virtual machine. This one, the Mavic Ransomware, is not known. It's a custom created ransomware by our engineers for the demos for the purpose of this demonstration and other purposes as well. But it is unknown to any provider. It's not out there. It's not public. It's 0-day, if you will. So what we're trying to demonstrate with this is that even though there would be a 0-day malware out there trying to encrypt your files on the machine, we will be able to stop it as well as we're running signatureless. So you see my colleague opening a lot of commands on the screen just to kind of make it a little bit more difficult to maybe track, and then we'll look at the how it's going to be stopped in its tracks by our solution. So I'll let you enjoy it. It's a minute and 13 seconds long, and then we'll get to the Q&A session. You've seen that it was stopped, right? And now my colleague is going to the dashboard to look at the process tree and what commands the malware actually tried to run, what processes tried to run in order to complete its routine and start doing its stuff. Good. So let me share my presentation again. Hope you can see it. Yep. Can you hear me? Good. So let's move to, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope we kind of got our point across and kind of convinced you that it's a very powerful tool and that you can rely on it to be better protected and have a better cybersecurity posture. One thing that I haven't mentioned, and I think it's very important to mention, is that it's of course going to work with our next gen antivirus for sure, but it's also going to work with any other antivirus you may have right now on your as using in your cybersecurity suite in your organization. So you can just take that as well. Now let me move to the Q&A session. Let's look at some of the questions that I got. Hopefully it's going to be useful information for everyone. So, right, someone's asking if they can get a copy of the webinar and the videos. They want to, I think, use this in some of their sites where it would be useful to have this protection installed. So if you want to maybe have like a business case built, I was going to mention this at the end of the webinar, but one of our cybersecurity consultants are going to be in touch with you to kind of do a free vulnerability assessment for your cybersecurity posture. And it is your chance to ask them as many questions as you'd like about our products, pricing, and everything else. So if that's a concern, absolutely, that's going to happen. So use that opportunity when they're going to give you a call or try to get in touch with you to ask them, whatever concerns you may have about a product and everything else. But the other part of the question, the webinar is going to be available on demand on heimdalsecurity.com/webinars in around 24 hours after we end the session today. So probably tomorrow afternoon, my time is going to be, and that's Bucharest time, that's where I'm located. It's going to be active on our website. You're going to get a notification. I'm going to send you an email with that as well. Thank you very much for the nice words you've put in here, some of you. I really appreciate it. Someone asking if cell phones are at risk. Yes, they are. And as you've seen, no manufacturer is really unbreakable. There is a lot more malware, or maybe there are a lot more threats on Android phones, but Apple phones can be actively exploited as well. And if you remember, just a couple of weeks ago, they released the AirTags, those little devices that you can put on your keys and on other objects, making sure that you don't lose them. What's going to happen? That got hacked apparently to run and direct the user to a malicious site. If that's, of course, it was demonstrated as a proof of concept, if you will, by a researcher, but the hackers are also going to use this if they can. Someone's asking me what's happening if they have the antivirus but they don't have the ransomware protection. What happens is that, that's a tricky question, right? So do you have any other security solutions or just an antivirus? If you have an antivirus, the antivirus, ours and others, are using a signature-based protection. Mostly, they rely on that. What that means is that if there's an unknown ransomware, some code that I would create today and put it out there, it's going to take some time before that's becoming known to cybersecurity providers. And because of this, they would be able to perhaps infiltrate the endpoints. I hope I answered your question. Thank you very much for the nice words. If we offer protection for cell phones, I think we had something on the roadmap for Android phones, not for Apple at this time. Not 100% sure what to say right now, how to answer this question right at this point, but I can get back to you with more details in an email after the webinar as well. Someone's asking me, saying actually that they see a lot of information on their LinkedIn feeds talking about dual ransomware and what that really means or how that works. The reality is that ransomware strains such as DarkSide or Ryuk, as we've seen, they use a double ransomware method, and that is encrypting the data but then extorting you for not making that data public. That's really the short answer to this question. If I have any advices in the aftermath of an attack, it's asking somebody. Well, we've talked about whether we should pay or not the ransom or not. I'd say not pay it. But that's my own take. I'm not obviously going to be in your shoes managing your own business, but I would not pay it. However, so that you can avoid not getting into that situation, if you are concerned or if you've been breached, the first thing is to start changing all the passwords immediately. As I said, the hackers were probably in your system between, and this is what our data shows us, between 60 and 120 days before the encryption itself happened. So make sure that you change all of the passwords, change the two-factor authenticators as well, and do it as a force change within the organization immediately, including admin passwords and user passwords and all that. So that's what you should do first of all. Then I have another question about some competitor. How do we measure with our competitor on endpoint protection? I'd say we're top, but I can provide you more details in an email to look at that. Some other questions that are a little bit more technical, and I'm gonna get back in an email as well. I'm not gonna answer these right now. Just make sure that you're getting the right information. I'm gonna get to the right guys, making sure that I'm giving you a complete answer, and I'm not missing anything. That's how I like to approach things. So I think that's gonna kind of conclude the Q&A session. You may be curious by the surprises, what the giveaway is about. Well, as I mentioned just a little bit earlier, you're going to get a free vulnerability assessment. What that means is that, I'm going to repeat, maybe some of you couldn't hear me very well during the video part, but what's going to happen is that one of our cybersecurity consultants are going to get in touch with you to understand what products are you using, what's your environment, how you're protecting on different avenues and stuff like that. And it is going to be your chance to also ask them as many questions as you like about pricing, about compatibility with Linux or Windows, or for different type of products that we're offering, as we're offering a modular solution. It's not you have to buy them all. You just pick whatever you need, and then as you need, you scale up or down. It's really up to you. So they're going to be in touch with you. You can also get your hands on a 30 days enterprise free trial of our products. All of those products that you'll be able to see on our website. You're going to be able to get your hands on, test them, see for yourself how they work, how easy it is to deploy, how easy it is to work with them. So take advantage of that as well. And on top of all this, I'm also going to send you an email in the next couple of days that's going to contain a free Heimdal Threat Prevention Home license key for 1 year and 3 devices. So be on the lookout for that as well, and enjoy it. And with that, I kind of conclude this webinar. I really thank you very much for participating. A huge number today. I'm really pleased about it. I think a lot of you understand the importance of understanding ransomware and the consequences of that. So that's a good sign. I'm happy for that. Happy to see that. There's going to be a survey, short survey after the webinar. Please take a minute to complete that so that I can deliver better content for you in the future. And thank you for the interactivity and for being with me again today. As usual, until the next webinar, I wish you all to stay safe both offline and online. Have a good day or evening ahead, and thank you again. Bye.